Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning into my channel. My name is Princess Amani and this is Destiny's Child, the true story. So check out my Spotify where I release all my music, so please feel free to give a girl some streams. Okay, let's get into it. Chapter 1, The Journey to Star Search. Destiny's Child has earned its place as the world's best-selling girl group of all time, having sold over 60 million records and breaking countless records. But not many know about their tumultuous journey to success. This is Destiny's Child, the true story. Destiny's Child started off as a 1990 kids revue act based in Houston, Texas. The original managers, Deborah Leday and Denise Seals, had seen an MC Hammer concert with varied acts and wanted to build a similar revue act inspired by it. In this revue, there would be 3 groups, M1, Destiny, and Girls Tyme. M1 was a rap group, Destiny were a dance troupe, and Girls Tyme were a singing group. Latavia Roberson was part of Destiny, and Beyoncé and 2 other singers formed Girls Tyme. Eventually, Deborah and Denise ran out of resources and asked the local talent manager, Andretta Tillman, to fund the group. Andretta had lost her husband Dwight and 2-year-old daughter Shauna in a fatal car accident in 1986. It was Dwight's dream to become a big-time music manager like Motown's Berry Gordy, so instead of falling into a deep depression, Anne decided to keep her husband's dream alive. Anne received almost $500,000 in a life insurance payout. She also successfully sued the police for not pursuing the drunk driver who caused her husband and daughter's death. Andretta used this money to create the music empire that her husband had always dreamed of. Now a joint manager of the Girls Revue Act, Andretta felt that the act needed to be slimmed down in order to achieve success. Only Beyoncé and Latavia survived the cut, and shortly after, Kelly Rowland, Ashley, Tamar Davis, and Nina and Nikki, Latavia's cousins, came in to flesh out the group. Ashley was brought in as the lead vocalist, Beyoncé was the second lead and backup vocalist, Kelly served backup vocals, Latavia was the rapper, and Nina and Nikki were the group's dancers. Latavia was already a local celebrity, having starred in various Just For Me hair campaigns. Tina actually briefly speaks about Ashley being the initial lead singer in her roundtable with Michelle Obama.
I remember Beyoncé being in the group at first and someone coming in she brought the other girl in, and the girl was older, like stronger, and had a better voice at the time than her. But she had
Not possible.
No, yeah, because she was much older and stronger. And her coming home and saying, that's not fair because I brought her there and, and they not even telling me thank you. And now she's just singing all the lead. And I'm like, you know what I would do? I would go get in those voice lessons and I just work twice as hard because the world ain't fair. And, that was a really tough lesson for that age.
Say that please one more time.
Beyoncé's first vocal coach, David Lee Brewer, has said that Ashley was training with him first, and then Tina asked him to train Beyoncé after the fact. He alludes to the toxic competition between Beyoncé and Ashley throughout his book, Beyoncé, Raising Genius. Matthew Knowles was allegedly in the background scheming to oust Deborah and Denise as the girls' managers. He and Deborah were constantly getting into it, and both had allegedly threatened to shoot each other. According to Jay Tabarelli's book, Becoming Beyoncé, Matthew held a meeting where he got all the girls' parents to vote Deborah out. He allegedly even hired security outside of the meeting to stop Deborah from coming in. It's alleged that around this time, Matthew's drug and sex addiction was extremely out of hand. Having had a successful corporate career, he was now out of work and disappearing for days on end. It's alleged that he would spend much of his spare time at strip clubs and with sex workers. It's alleged by David that Matthew's habit was so well known that even children at the girls' local schools were calling him a Coca-Cola head. After the departure of Denise and Deborah, Andretta, or Miss Anne as the girls called her, became the group's sole manager, and the group are now called Girls Tyme. She hired choreographers, music producers, and assistant managers to really get the group off the ground. In the background, Matthew kept badgering Andretta and her team to make Beyoncé the lead singer. He would allegedly say things like, Beyoncé is the real star of the group, and Ashley is too tall, she stands out. Andretta would always reply, everyone in the group is a star. Andretta saw the girls as her own and was able to keep her daughter Shauna alive through them. After the girls secured a slot at a major music showcase in 1991, producer Arnie Frager offered to produce tracks for the girls. This resulted in the group's lead vocalists, Ashley and Beyoncé, flying out to California to work with him.
And they seemed very serious when other little kids were, playing with their friends. They were working on dance routines and they were doing performances. So I figured, well, this would be a good shot. So we worked with mostly on vocals in here was Beyoncé. She stood out because she had all this personality and she certainly could sing circles around everybody. And she had a presence.
It was in these sessions that Beyoncé would take over as the lead vocalist. According to Anne's then co-manager Kenny Moore, Ashley struggled to nail a really difficult vocal part in the song Blue Velvet. Beyoncé, annoyed, kept fidgeting until Kenny eventually said, "What's wrong with you, girl?" A frustrated Beyoncé didn't respond, but Kenny got the feeling that Beyoncé felt she could knock it out of the park. Beyoncé was eventually let into the booth, despite Andretta not wanting to record the part, and knocked it out of the park in one take. Shocked, the team, including Andretta and her hired producers, had Beyoncé re-record Ashley's parts on several other tracks. Ashley sat at the back of the studio traumatized, until Kenny noticed her distress and asked to stop the session. "We're going to traumatize her for life," he told Anne and the producers.
But Beyoncé wasn't the original lead singer of Destiny's Child. But
B was not. B was not the. I mean, she sung lead, but Tamar Davis was the original lead singer. She was the hammer. What happened was when we went to California to the plant, and we were in the studio, there was one particular song that she was struggling with. And Beyoncé was sitting beside me and she was just like fidgeting. And I was like, "Look, girl, will you quit moving so much, And Anne had a strict rule, her and Lonnie, the producer, that nobody said anything through a session. But Beyoncé would not quit moving. So I'm sitting there like, "B, what is wrong with you? What's wrong with you?" And so I finally realized, I said, "B, can you do it?" She's like, "Yes, sir." And that little squeaky little voice of hers. And I was like, "Now, B, if I stop this session, they straight finna cuss me out." I said, "Now, you cannot mess this up." She said, "I won't, Uncle." I said, "All right." And I leaned over Ann and the cursing started. And, I took the abuse. And then I was like, "Hey, let B do it. Let B do it." And lo and behold, she went in, first take, bam. And I mind you, we had already recorded like 6 songs with Tamar on the lead. All of a sudden, Lonnie, the producer, he started dumping the tracks. Beyoncé, "Go get the lead on this." And so when we went out there as Tamar as the lead singer and Beyoncé is the second lead singer accompanying her, we came back with Beyoncé, the lead singer, and Tamar doing background. So we had to explain that to the parents that, we left one way, but B took the opportunity and ran. And I mean, you're paying that type of money, you come back with the best you can.
After this recording session, Beyoncé was now officially the reigning lead vocalist of the group. It was also around this time that Andretta was sadly diagnosed with lupus. Shortly after these recording sessions, the girls were selected to compete on the iconic talent show Star Search. The girls' songs were already circulating around the music industry, and the feedback that came back was that Latavia and Beyoncé were the standout stars. As a result, a song that featured mainly Beyoncé and Latavia was selected for the Star Search performance. This caused a lot of conflict in the Girls Tyme camp, as some of the team thought it would be a huge mistake for the girls to rap on the show, as they were first and foremost a singing group. By this point, Ashley's parents had had enough of Matthew and were beyond aggravated by the fact that their daughter was slowly fading further and further into the background whilst Beyoncé's star was rising. They decided to take Ashley out of the group, and Ashley would go on to resent this choice as Destiny's Child's career would flourish. The girls' vocal coach, Lee Brewer, also claims in his book that Tina forced him to stop teaching Ashley altogether if he wanted to continue training Beyoncé.
The Girls Tyme brand is damaged. We've lost. That's how hard she took it. Not only trying to convince the girls to get up, let's keep moving. She took it that this brand has been damaged because we've lost to a group we shouldn't have lost it. That's how we took it. But she took it and laid it out that, hey, we need to make a change because forever, if we continue to use Girls Tyme, everybody's going to always relate us to this loss. So now things in the household is starting to change. Shortly after that, Ashley Davis leaves the group, and now we're searching for a new lead singer. Background singer.
Or the sister. Yeah, that was tough. Yeah, because she was a part of everything that we worked hard for. You know what I mean? Like, it was, and for her just she was gone, one day. And nobody really told us why. Like, nobody really explained what happened. Nobody really just said, we just knew that she was gone and they was trying to replace. And so that was tough because we had built this bond with Ashley and we loved her like a sister, just like we did everybody else. So it was kind of hard. And we always kept saying, we would always say, we're going to stick together no matter what. We're going to always be together. We're going to always be together. And that was something we said, always encouraged us. Y'all stick together. You stay together. One move, the next move, and she always made sure that we stayed together as a sisterhood. So for one part to be removed, it was tough.
David, the girls' vocal coach, would also go on to discuss Ashley's departure from Girls Tyme on her podcast Tamar Talks in 2021.
Okay. Yeah, there was a huge fight, and your mother was fierce. Your mother was fiercely protective of you, as mothers should be. But Celestine, I don't call her Tina. Everybody else calls her Tina. She's not a friend of mine, so I call her Celestine. That's her government name. So that's what I call her.
Celestine.
Yeah. So it was Celestine came to my house back in that apartment and said to me, either you had to go or I would lose Beyoncé forever. And I looked at her and I thought, what is she talking about? The last thing that Beyoncé's mother told me was if I did not teach only Beyoncé, that I would lose. They were always threatening to take Beyoncé away. They did it to Ann. They did it to me several times. They were always threatening to take Beyoncé away. And finally, I looked at her and I said, "Girl, I am the gift giver here. Kiss my bye."
I remember when I left, I was so speechless. I was young and I was speechless. I went to school. Like you said, I did great things, but it wasn't until college did that womb come back again. And like, I was on the verge of just like, God, why did you even create me? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't get it, And what people don't understand is, I'm going to be honest, we saw Miss Pam Luckett at the Galleria. And she said straight up, she said she was commending me and my mom for our relationship. But people didn't know me and my mom still had a weird relationship because my mom never told me the truth. And then I wasn't asking for things. So every time she would call, I'd be like, what does she want now? And I didn't know I was just bitter. I didn't know I was bitter for years.
Yeah.
And one day she's telling us, she said she feels like Letoya walks up a mountain with grenades being thrown at her back. And I knew what she was saying. She was saying, because and I'm going to be honest, she said the same things you were saying. They were like, if you put Letoya on this show, you won't get Beyoncé. That manipulative thing to me, I don't care who you are. I don't wish it on my worst enemy because I feel like there's so much that's against us. So when we keep doing it to each other today, in today's economy.
It's also alleged that around this time, Matthew demanded half of the girls' management fee from Andretta. He allegedly said, if you do not give me half of the group, I'll pull Beyoncé out. The group, now called Something Fresh, had now lost their major powerhouse vocalist, Ashley, and quickly needed to replace her. This is where Letoya Luckett came in. She was in the same class as Beyoncé at school, and Beyoncé had asked her to audition for the group. She was successful, and now the group had 3 vocalists, Beyoncé, Kelly, and Letoya.
And then Beyoncé and Letoya went to school together, and they knew each other from
St.
Girl
James.
Scouts.
Toya was in Girl Scouts. I remember walking in the Girl Scout meeting, asking Toya, do you want to be in the group? And she was like, yeah! So she tried out, and she had on a silver lame, just looking so... Big hair, out there. And she tried out, and she was just so little and so cute. So precious. But she fit right on in. That was like 5-6 years ago. And we've been together since.
Latavia, Nina and Nikki remained in the group as rappers and dancers respectively. Now a 6-girl group, it was all systems go in terms of securing the girls a record deal. In the background, Andretta's lupus had seriously worsened and she had to have several fingers amputated. She was in and out of the hospital, and as a result, Matthew started taking on more managerial duties. It actually got to the point where people didn't even know that Andretta was the group's manager, and thought Matthew was the sole manager. It's alleged that this was intentional on Matthew's part. Around this time, the girls' vocal coach, Lee Brewer, was asked to move in with the Knowleses. He would teach her singing lessons from the Knowles' garage apartment.
Dance routines, we would have voice lessons. We had a vocal teacher that lived in the back apartment, and he would come give us lessons.
He alleges that Matthew's drug use worsened during this time, and he would continue to go missing for days on end. David claims that Beyoncé and Solange would often ask their mum Tina where Matthew was, and she would tell them he was on business trips or at Kinko's. David also claims that Solange would regularly physically attack Matthew, kicking him and punching him during this time. Interestingly, David also states in his book that Kelly and her late mother Doris were actually living in their car in the early days of Girls Tyme. David says that to him, Kelly was the second coming of Whitney Houston, and he begged Andretta to have Kelly in the group in spite of her shyness. Andretta in turn begged Kelly's mum to let Kelly stay with her, as Doris's job as a nanny made it difficult for her to bring Kelly to rehearsals. But with Anne's work and hospital appointments, it eventually became difficult for her to drop Kelly off at rehearsals, which were now taking place at the Knowles' house. Matthew and Tina also started to raise concerns about Kelly being around Andretta's 2 older sons. As a result, custody of Kelly was given to the Knowles'. David claims that the reason he was asked to move in with the Knowles' was because Matthew, who was disappearing for days on drug and sex binges, would regularly forget to pick Beyoncé up from her singing lessons. As Tina was working at her hair salon full-time, she didn't have the time to drop Beyoncé off at singing classes, so she asked him to move in with them. David claims he witnessed tons of nasty fights between Tina and Matthew at this time, which Beyoncé was also witness to. He also says that he became a surrogate father to Beyoncé around this time, and that B was extremely neglected by her parents. Beyoncé would usually sit outside of his vocal lessons all day by herself, just eager to learn more about singing. She would come into his apartment directly after a student finished their lesson and bombard David with questions. David claims that he recognized Beyoncé's vocal genius the minute he first met her, and that he felt a need to protect her from Matthew and Tina's chaos. It's important to note that Matthew was consistently out of work around this time, and he and Tina had to file for bankruptcy twice. Andretta constantly had to give them thousands of dollars to keep the Knowles' afloat. David would go years without being paid for Beyoncé singing lessons. David also claims that Tina tinkered with her home's electric meter in order to get free electricity. He claims that Tina had to bribe an inspector in order to evade prison. This bribe money was cash that Andretta had allegedly given her to pay for their late mortgage payments. Eventually, as has been admitted by Tina and Matthew, they had to sell their home and move into a small apartment.
Our marriage really suffered then.
We had to sell our house. We started selling the cars.
At that point, my mother and father had separated.
I just took the girls one day and moved them into an apartment.
We went from living in a 6-bedroom house with this beautiful living space, and we had to move into a 2-bedroom apartment.
And there were a lot of us that were kind of sitting and watching on the sidelines thinking, maybe, he really ought to go back and do something else.
Tina and Matthew separated, and Matthew allegedly stayed at Andretta's home. Chapter 2. The girls get signed and then dropped. Eventually, a video of Something Fresh singing made its way to producer Daryl Simmons. He had recently worked with TLC, Whitney Houston and Toni Braxton. He signed the girls to a production deal, which eventually led to the girls being signed to Elektra Records in 1993. Unfortunately for Nina, Nikki and Latavia, the label's president, Sylvia Rohn, did not want to sign dancers or rappers to the label. Around this time, Daryl Simmons wanted Kiki Wyatt to replace them, but this fell through due to Kiki's stage fright. In the end, Latavia, Nina and Nikki had to audition for the fourth and final vocalist slot. Both Nina and Nikki were eliminated, and Latavia became the fourth vocalist. Without Andretta's knowledge, Daryl and Matthew had changed the girls' group name to The Dolls. She only found out at the signing party. Unbeknownst to her, everyone in the group's camp was now told that Andretta was Matthew's assistant, even the girls. Devastated, she held back tears at the signing party and openly confronted Matthew, there and then, much to Daryl's shock. Now signed to Elektra Records, the girls began to record their debut album. However, it's alleged that Matthew misappropriated the record label's funds. He allegedly pocketed the money that was allocated to pay for top record producers and instead paid cheaper local producers who produced substandard songs. When the girls turned in the songs to the record label, the president, Sylvia Rohn, was disgusted with what Matthew had done, allegedly, and dropped the girls from the label immediately. Now, with no money and no record label, the girls were back at the drawing board. Matthew allegedly went back to Andretta, begging her to help the girls to get a new record deal, after he had just stabbed her in the back. "Help me fix it," he would say to her, showing up at all times of the night to her house. "Hell, you the one that broke it," Andretta would allegedly reply. Things got so bad that Andretta had to have friends guard her bedroom door to stop Matthew bursting in at all times of the day and night. By this point, Andretta had spent all of her life insurance money and lawsuit money on the girls and supporting their parents. She even had to spend her 2 sons' inheritance fund. By this point, she had no choice but to accept loans from her successful drug dealer relative to keep the group afloat. The girls' vocal coach, David, also claims that it was around this time that Latavia revealed that she had been abused since the age of 8 by a very close relative. He claims that her mother did not believe her and outright called her a liar. I would not reveal the identity of the abuser, as I will leave this to Latavia to reveal for herself, should she wish to. She has also been open about this experience to an extent in the past. Davia says that the reason Latavia struggles to sing to this day is because much of her singing experience and childhood trauma are tightly interwoven. Those of you who have watched R&B Divas will have seen Latavia's struggles with singing.
I thought she understood why I didn't want to sing, and she was supportive. But this day at the studio, when she tells me that she feels that I need to sing, I'm really kind of just wondering where it came from.
Chapter 3, The Journey to Columbia. Now having lost out on the deal of a lifetime due to Matthew's antics, Andretta went to work again. She reached out to Columbia Records A&R Teresa LaBarbara White, who requested to see the girls audition in person. Matthew allegedly double-crossed Andretta and set up meetings with Teresa behind her back, despite Teresa being Andretta's contact. You can see footage of Matthew scolding the girls for swimming before their audition with Teresa here.
Matthew had sent me a demo tape, unsolicited, in the mail. You could tell they could sing from the demo. So I flew to Houston and Matthew set up a showcase for me, and so the girls come out and they're dancing and singing and rapping, and they have about 4 or 5 dancers with them. Ponytails flying and singing their hearts out. And Matthew comes out in the middle of it and stops them.
They can't hit that song today.
They can't do it today?
Yeah, they're hoarse. Myself. Now I need you to go blow your nose, get focused, and they did just that.
The children of the world, reach out.
Teresa loved the girls and had seen them perform several times over the years. Now with the power to sign, she set up an audition at Sony Music's New York office. In the background, the girls had been working with producer Dwayne Wiggins of Grassroots Entertainment. They had a production deal with him, and he had managed to produce several stellar songs for them. There was one final snag, however. Columbia had heard that Matthew had misappropriated funds during the girls' deal with Elektra. As a result, they didn't want to give him the girls' money. This was holding up the deal. Teresa convinced the label to let Dwayne handle the money, and finally the girls got their dream deal in 1996. By this time, Andretta had more fingers amputated, she was on an oxygen machine, and after a trip to hospital, she sadly passed away in 1997. Prior to her death, Matthew had allegedly blackmailed her to give him a higher percentage of the group's earnings. It's also alleged that just before Andretta was rushed into theatre and died, Tina was at her hospital bed asking her to sign papers. No one has been able to confirm what Andretta was actually signing to this day. Regardless, Andretta had now passed away, leaving Matthew as the girls' sole manager. More drama was on the way, however, as Matthew allegedly banned the girls from Andretta's funeral. In protest, they ended up going anyway. It's also claimed that Matthew showed up to Andretta's funeral screaming and asking for the master copies of Destiny's Child's first album. He allegedly shouted "F Ann" outside of the funeral. More drama ensued shortly after when Letoya was temporarily kicked out of the group for not signing Matthew's management contract on the spot. Eventually, fearing being kicked out permanently, she signed the contract. In an article for the February 2001 edition of Vibe magazine, Letoya stated, "This is the 4th time I've been kicked out. Anytime a contract comes up, Matthew kicks me out of the group because I won't just sign anything. It was like a bad relationship. He would kick me out and then call me back a few days later talking about, I need you, I need you, I need you. He needs a prayer. He needs a hug." Chapter 4. The group splits. The group eventually settled on the name Destiny. If you remember, at the beginning of the video I told you that Girls Tyme were a part of a review act where the dance group was called Destiny. One of Andretta's friends has claimed that Andretta actually came up with the name. However, it is claimed that Tina saw the word when the girl's picture fell near it in the Bible.
Alright, how we got the name. Beyonce's mom was about to read the Bible one day, and our picture was in there, and it fell out, and next to the picture was the name Destiny in boldface print.
We were looking for a name.
Yeah.
And right there was Destiny.
And we were that name was ours. I mean, it was ours, man.
Right.
So
Just
we
like
had
God
sent
sent
a message
yeah.
to us, like we were destined for success, so your name must be Destiny.
Right. But we couldn't use Destiny by itself.
Everybody and their mama
had
the name.
Right. So Michael Malden, our manager,
we love you, Michael.
Yes, and ourselves, we came up with the name Child. So
it's
we
like
put
a
it together
rebirth of Destiny.
And we say Destiny's Child.
It's really spiritual.
Right.
Because we're a very spiritual group.
Thanks, brother.
Right.
Tina was looking in the Bible. She looked at this word and it was destiny. And actually, I came up with the word child as a rebirth of destiny.
Due to other groups already using the name, Child was added. In the early recording sessions, producers asked to use Letoya and Latavia on lead vocals. However, Matthew would allegedly refuse, stating that the group was to be like the Supremes, with Beyoncé doing the lead vocals. This was his idea of branding the group, as with one lead singer, the group would have a distinct and easily recognizable sound. Letoya and Latavia would often be sat in the green rooms of studios or not be invited to the studio at all. At some point, Beyoncé was recording backing vocals and harmonies too, to the point that a lot of tracks were solely Beyoncé on the whole song. It's also claimed that around this time, Beyoncé got fed up with this, and when her dad wasn't around, she'd tell producers to give the other girls the lead parts. One day, Dwayne had her recording the lead vocal to a song, while Kelly, Latavia and Letoya watched solemnly from the other side of the glass, all three sitting with him and the engineer. "Why am I singing all this stuff when the other girls can sing some of it too?" Beyoncé asked him from inside the recording booth. "Well, Matthew has a thing he's trying to do," Dwayne said. "Good Lord, Matthew ain't here now, is he?" Beyoncé asked, taking off her headphones. "One of the other girls can sing this part. she decided. Like Kelly. Kelly can sing this just fine. Heck yeah, Kelly said eagerly as she bolted from her chair. Let me go in there and do my thing. The group's eponymous album went on to be a moderate hit, reaching gold status and number 67 on the Billboard 200. Their debut single, No No No, however, was a huge hit, reaching number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and eventually certifying platinum. Destiny's Child were also becoming a global sensation with No 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 reaching the top 10 in the Netherlands, Norway and the United Kingdom. Striking whilst the iron was hot, Matthew got the girls back into the studio to record what would become the smash hit album, The Writings on the Wall. This album would peak at number 5 on the Billboard 200 and the lead single, Bills, 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 reached the number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming the girls' first number 1 single. The girls were now certified megastars. In the background, however, tensions were growing within the group. When Letoya fell sick, Matthew allegedly wanted to kick her out of the group. Letoya and her mother would beg the doctor to give Letoya clearance to leave the hospital so that she wouldn't be fired. Letoya was given clearance to rejoin the girls on tour, and her mum Pam joined her for support. The girls were touring with the R&B group Jagged Edge at the time. Letoya and Latavia had dated the older twins from the group, Brian and Casey, who were in their 20s at the time. The girls were 17/18. Allegedly, Matthew kicked Pam, Letoya's mum, off the bus due to his insurance not covering her. This led to Jagged Edge protesting and them all getting off the tour bus in the middle of nowhere.
We were somewhere in Louisiana, and Letoya's mother, Miss Pam, we called her, was gonna ride on the bus with us. And our management was like, if Pam gets on that bus, then y'all are gonna lose your job.
We were like, hell no, like, you're not gonna kick somebody's mother off a bus, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no.
Jagged Edge stood up for Miss Pam because it's wrong. You can't just leave this girl's mother.
We were asked to leave. We got kicked off the bus. He ended up kicking us off and the mom.
Around this time, Latavia had also become sick, but her doctor did not give her clearance to leave the hospital. It's claimed that Beyoncé and Kelly were forced to give Latavia the silent treatment as a result of her absence. Matthew even swapped her out with the group's choreographer.
Matthew got the phone call that Latavia was very sick, and the next day we were going on our European tour, and we were all like, well, what are we gonna do? We can't go. And he was like, well, Janella, the choreographer, can take her place.
I was shocked. I was literally floored. I have 104 fever. I can't leave.
The last straw on the camel's back came when Letoya and Latavia started noticing a difference between their finances and Beyoncé's. Beyoncé allegedly had 2 luxury cars and was doing well for herself.
You look up some days and you're like, okay, I can't pay my cell phone bill. You know, like, that's really crazy. So we had questions.
When Toya was like, well, you know, I want to go get another manager. There's no reason that Beyonce driving a Jaguar right now and my mama still is driving this old Mazda.
This led the girls to seek legal advice and disaffirm their personal management contract with Matthew Knowles, not leave the group. However, when Matthew received the disaffirmance letter, he was done with Letoya and Latavia. Beyoncé went into a deep depression, one of many she had allegedly slipped into since early childhood. She seriously considered leaving the group permanently at this point and going solo.
And I could have very well gone solo. Right. But because of my loyalty to the fans and because of my love for Kelly, that's something that I don't want to do and I wasn't ready to do.
Now that the girls were at an impasse with no communication between the parties, Kelly and Beyoncé were forced to perform shows alone. With no compromise met by the two parties and a video deadline for Say My Name approaching in 2 weeks, Beyoncé and Tina took it upon themselves to audition new girls for the group. It's alleged that there was a clause in Destiny's Child's contract which gave Matthew the authority to kick members out of the group if they did not turn up to shows. According to YouTuber Justified by Jury, Letoya and Latavia claimed that they had no idea that these shows were even going on. In his book, Becoming Beyoncé, The Untold Story, Jay Tabarelli claims that Letoya and Latavia wrote Beyoncé and Kelly a stern letter to explain how upset they were that they continued to perform without them, showing them no support. When the Say My Name music video premiered on BET in February 2000, Letoya and Latavia realised for the first time that they had been replaced by Michelle Williams and Farrah Franklin.
We were watching BET and we heard world premiere, Say My Name video. We were sitting there just in awe. It was like a blank emotion. We're looking at each other like, oh my gosh.
Wow. 7 years down the drain, just like that.
Michelle had previously sang background vocals for the singer Monica, and Farrah had been an extra in the Bills, Bills, Bills music video. Chapter 5, Anjel. Due to the intense media backlash against Beyoncé and Kelly's team had to go full steam ahead with damage control. This unfortunately led to Letoya and Latavia's name and credibility being dragged through the mud. A full-fledged media war had erupted between the four girls.
It wasn't something that happened suddenly, like at the spur of a moment. It was something that had been going on. It was things that we were noticing.
It was conflicts that were going on.
Yeah.
The departure was like this.
We always tried to work out our differences and communicate between each other. We always tried to communicate, but we were having problems for a while now.
It's just a real weird feeling to actually be with somebody since you were 9 and 10 and then be separated so suddenly. That's
like the drop of a hat.
They seemed to feel that they could continue on as part of the group and yet under their own management. Was that even conceivable as far as you're concerned?
That's ludicrous. There's only one word for that. You have to have cohesion. Columbia Records is not going to deal with two managers. That's not going to happen. That's not real world.
There was not a dispute with Beyoncé and Kelly.
At all.
We didn't have any argument. Letoya and I, we never quit the group.
Never quit.
We never quit.
Never left. Never even said anything about quitting the group.
We simply wanted to disaffirm our personal management agreement with our manager. And because of it, this happened.
Right.
They still insist to us that they've got love for you guys. They do not have hard feelings for you. Their issue is with management and not with the two of you.
Well, they slapped a nice lawsuit on us. Yeah. So that's a lot of love. That's some hard love, isn't it?
Letoya and Latavia were successful in receiving roughly $900,000 in compensation for misappropriation of the group's funds and favoritism to Beyoncé from Matthew. However, it was argued that they were lowballed considering all of the money that Destiny's Child would go on to make. Latavia and Letoya wouldn't give up on their dreams and went on to form the girl group Anjel. Their former vocal coach, David Lee Brewer, would be their manager. David had managed to get the girls a record deal with BMG Music. However, he claims that Brian and Casey of Jagged Edge had turned Letoya and Latavia against him. Letoya and Latavia allegedly signed a record deal with Brian and Casey behind David's back, and then fired David after a fiery telephone conversation. Both the BMG and Jagged Edge deal eventually fell through, and Anjel unfortunately disbanded. Latavia fell into a deep depression, relying on alcohol and drugs to soothe her pain and childhood trauma. She wouldn't be seen publicly until many years later when she appeared on The Real Housewives of Atlanta in 2010.
You know, I got that audition for the group the same day that Beyoncé was there. It was something great that happened. We had sold over 20 million records, 2 Grammys. It was the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to me.
Obviously, the story goes wrong somewhere.
I was told by somebody in the group, you know, you don't even do enough in this group to even have an opinion. From there,
You were basically just fired.
pretty much.
That had to be devastating.
It was very devastating.
I can't even imagine it.
It was like a marriage that it went wrong. Before I knew it, I was just trying to numb so much stuff, drinking all day, every day. I didn't even recognize myself in the mirror. I got a DWI. I went to jail for hatred. I thought I was gonna die. It was one of the most horrible experiences of my life. Thank you. I didn't come here to cry.
I didn't either.
I'm just tired of being where I've been.
Letoya would also struggle to find her way after Anjel disbanded. Letoya only recently admitted that around this time she was broke and sleeping in her car.
I slept in a car in LA.
Wow.
While I was making my first album. Not a lot of nights, but a few.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When I was staying in hotels, couldn't really afford anything else, so I was like drinking a gallon of water and buying the microwavable oodles and noodles, and I was like cooking them on the coffee pot in the hotel. I can't believe I'm crying. Oh my God.
Chapter 6. Moving on as a trio. The new incarnation of Destiny's Child went on to see huge success. Say My Name shot to #1 on the charts and won the group 2 Grammy Awards. However, 5 months after joining the group, Farrah Franklin quit due to Matthew Knowles' alleged abusive and bullying behaviour.
So basically, we were in Seattle. Well, prior to Seattle, we were in the UK, and I got really, really sick. And they knew I was sick. Nobody was concerned. Nobody tried to do anything. Nothing.
What you had, a stomach flu? What you had?
I had stomach flu, yeah.
Oh.
So I flew myself to Los Angeles to see my doctor. He's like, yeah, you have a stomach virus. You're not supposed to be doing any strenuous dancing or anything for 2 weeks. Now the next day, I had to be in Houston because MTV was following us for behind the scenes, you know, and all that. We were in Seattle. I'm like, you're gonna have to give me a shot. And he goes, I gotta get on a plane and I have a show. Like, I don't have 2 weeks. I got 2 hours. Give me something. It was really bad. I called Matthew and I told him I was drained. I had to sit with an IV for like 4 hours in my hand. Like I was drained. I didn't know. My body, I'm a child, you know what I mean? I'm 18 years old. I've never done this type of work before, and we're on it. Like, when I'm gonna say we work, on a good day, 6 hours of sleep was like winning. And we're traveling everywhere too, so you know, I mean, that just takes energy out of you. So long story short, like I said, I didn't want to complain because I didn't want to get kicked out of the situation because I seen what happened to the girls prior, so I'm trying to play my part, go to the hospital on my own, take care of my own stuff, and be back. I called Matthew just to let him know what was going on. I told him, hey, I just got out of the hospital. The doctor said this, whatever, but I'm about to get on a plane. He was like, I don't give a fuck what you just did. You better have your ass on that plane or you'll get replaced. As long as we have Beyoncé, there's gonna be a Destiny's Child.
Tensions between Farrah and the girls at this time have gone viral in recent years.
That's the last flight out of here?
Yes, sir. You might have to go straight to the airport.
I don't have no luggage.
I'm rolling. Well, it's better for you to go home than not have luggage.
No, it's not.
It's not?
Because where y'all coming out there?
Well, somebody can send your luggage.
But then I'm going to have to wait for 4 days before I get all my stuff.
Well, it's either that or you're going to probably miss your flight.
Went to the hospital yesterday of dehydration and a stomach flu. So I'm trying to get through this day. But still can't wait to perform.
Well, that afternoon, we had a trip planned to Australia. And Destiny's Child was the first R&B group to ever be #1 there. And that was a huge deal because R&B is not really, people are not really feeling R&B there. So everybody was in shock. And we had 2 sold out venues in Australia. And we called her and asked her, please come. She said she couldn't make it. And basically, when you don't show up for work for over a week, just like any job, you can't just not show up for no reason. Everybody was tired. We all were on the same schedule. Everybody was tired. I think she just couldn't take it. So we wish her the very best. We have nothing against her, but we just felt like we can continue on as a trio, and that's what we're doing.
Going on as a trio, Destiny's Child would see megawatt success. The album Survivor went to #1 and sold almost 700,000 copies in its first week, becoming Columbia Records' fastest selling album ever. However, the Survivor era wouldn't be without its share of drama. After the album's release, Letoya and Latavia sued Beyoncé, Kelly, Michelle, and Matthew Knowles. Their previous lawsuit prohibited both parties from making any disparaging comments about each other in public. The lyrics of Survivor were taken to be a direct hit at Letoya and Latavia, and both parties would settle out of court in July 2001. Andretta Tillman's children would also sue Matthew Knowles, claiming that he had not paid them Andretta's 5% share of Destiny's Child's revenue. They would receive a 7-figure lump sum in an out-of-court settlement, allegedly. Unfortunately for Matthew, Andretta's children's claims of his drug and sex addiction would reach the press. Matthew was eventually forced to comment on the situation to the tabloid Star in an attempt to quell the scandal. Matthew was quoted as saying, "I am not proud of, nor am I ashamed of this stuff," said Matthew in Star, an American gossip tabloid. My wife and I had some real problems with our marriage and I went to a treatment facility in 1992. If you did a little alcohol or drugs, it was all lumped together as substance related. Despite the drama, most of the Destiny's Child members have reunited and remain friends to this day. Farrah is still recording music, but unfortunately has had many run-ins with the law over the years. She's also featured in a pilot TV reality show called Last Chance. The show aimed to spotlight ex-girl group members attempting to revitalise their careers.
Except for, I've been in 2 multi-platinum successful groups. And they weren't disbanded.
And I've been the biggest one and they're still together.
I know, but you weren't in it.
I wasn't in it. I sold 19 million albums on Say My Name.
I know, but did you...
Did I what? Ask.
Did you...
Absolutely, I sang. Say my name, say my name. Unfortunately, my manager happened to be Beyonce's father. Matthew Knowles, he propositioned me to invite me over to the hotel to meet and speak with him.
Did Matthew try to sleep with you, Farrah?
I haven't met too many people in my life who haven't liked me. I'll just put it like that.
But unfortunately, it was never picked up for a full series. Latavia would go on to star in the hit reality show R&B Divas and act in plays and films. She's currently gearing up to release a tell-all documentary about her life story and also has been working on a memoir. Latavia has set up a sports management company representing and promoting boxers. She also regularly gives motivational talks to young women, and most recently she started a music management company called Roberson Music Group. Letoya went on to sign a record deal with Capitol Records. She had several hit records and became the only Destiny's Child member, along with Beyoncé, to have a #1 album on the Billboard charts. She's been killing the acting game and has starred in hit shows such as Greenleaf and Power. She's recently appeared on the reality show T.I. and Tiny's Friends and Family Hustle. Kelly continues to drop hot music today and has had mega hits internationally with dance music as well as R&B. She was actually the first member of Destiny's Child to go solo and the first member to hit the top of the Billboard charts with the smash hit Dilemma. Kelly's 2002 debut album sold over 3 million copies, and shortly after this she starred in the box office #1 movie Freddy vs. Jason. Kelly would go on to sell millions of records with top charting songs such as Motivation, Work, Down for Whatever, When Love Takes Over and Commander. David Guetta credits Kelly for his success, having given him his first mainstream global smash hit with When Love Takes Over. Kelly pioneered R&B artists collaborating with dance producers and absolutely killed this genre. Kelly's still killing the acting game today and recently starred in Netflix's The Curse of Bridge Hollow, the Paramount Plus film Fantasy Football, and will soon star in Tyler Perry's Netflix legal drama Mea Culpa. Kelly's also been a judge on talent shows such as The Voice and X Factor. She's also produced her own talent search show with BET called Chasing Destiny. Kelly would also struggle through the years, however. In her 2013 song Dirty Laundry, Kelly detailed a relationship with a physically abusive man. She also revealed that after the Survivor album, she felt like her career was floundering compared to Beyoncé's. She details how her partner would feel this insecurity and even convinced her that Beyoncé did not love her. Columbia Records would go on to drop Kelly from the label, claiming that she was no longer marketable. Kelly has explained how devastating this was. Many had claimed that this was nothing but colorism, due to the fact that Kelly had released various mega hits over the years. Michelle went on to star in various movies over the years, including the Lifetime film Wrath, where Tina Knowles played her mother. Michelle has guest hosted various daytime talk shows from The Real to The View and The Talk. She's acted in Disney's Raven's Home and even played Diana Ross in the BET production American Soul. Michelle has a fantastic Broadway career, having played major roles in Aida, Color Purple, and Chicago. She's had a #1 gospel album in 2002 and a #2 gospel album in 2004. She's also achieved pop hits such as We Break the Dawn from her 2008 album Unexpected. In addition to this, she has also starred in celebrity entertainment shows such as The Masked Singer, US, UK, and Australia, as well as Strictly Come Dancing. #RichMichelle. Michelle would also go on to become a mental health advocate, Having suffered with depression for many years, she would check herself into a rehabilitation facility in 2018. Michelle went on to release the book, Checking In, How Getting Real About Depression Saved My Life and Can Save Yours. She also created the podcast Checking In to help raise awareness about mental health. Tamar Davis from Girls Tyme and Something Fresh has also flourished. She went on to tour and record with Prince, becoming his muse, and has had a successful Broadway career. She sang the co-lead vocals on Prince's Grammy-nominated song Beautiful, Loved and Blessed from his 2006 album 3121 and on backup vocals throughout the album. She reunited with Beyoncé at the 2007 Grammys, where they were both nominated. Ashley went on to compete in the 2016 season of The Voice, making it to the live playoffs. She was also a member of Kanye West's Sunday Service Choir and is a music supervisor for HBO's That Damn Michael Che. Nina and Nicki went back to school and are now successful teachers. Beyoncé went on to become arguably the biggest pop star in the world and the most awarded musician in Grammy history. She has 10 #1 songs on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and is also the first artist of all time to have 7 consecutive #1 albums on the Billboard chart. She has sold over 200 million records individually and has flexed her entrepreneurial muscles over the years. Having released several sold-out fragrances and clothing lines, Beyoncé has certainly earned the title mogul. Beyoncé has also flexed her acting muscles. She starred in blockbuster movies such as Dreamgirls, The Pink Panther, Austin Powers, and Goldmember, and Cadillac Records. She most recently launched her music management group Parkwood Entertainment, through which she manages the artists Chloe and Halle. Beyoncé has cemented herself as a cultural pop and fashion icon, and who knows where her amazing career will go from here. Every member of Destiny's Child would go on to fire Matthew as their manager, including Beyoncé, Kelly, and Michelle. Beyoncé would eventually fire Matthew for stealing money from her touring income, allegedly.
I needed boundaries, and I think my dad needed boundaries. It's really easy to get confused with this world that's your job, that you live and breathe every day, all day, and then you don't know when to turn it off. You need a break. I needed a break. I needed my dad.
And did you get your dad back?
No. It was hard. Smile. Gangster. I had to sacrifice my relationship with my dad. It was a stressful, sad, difficult time, but I had to let go.
Matthew now teaches as a music business professor internationally. Matthew and Tina divorced in 2011 due to Matthew's cheating. He has released several books on the music industry and has remarried and genuinely seems happy. Matthew was also seen recently having a lawn sale, selling Destiny's Child and Solange merchandise for as little as $1. However, he claims that he did not sell the merchandise because he needed the money.
It's a great deal. 3 t-shirts for $10, some dating back to Beyonce's performance at the Houston Rodeo in 2007.
My granddaughter happens to be a medium, so I figured I'd buy her a few shirts and hats, you know, what the heck.
There were dozens of boxes of t-shirts, CDs, and office furniture at this garage sale, which just happened to be on Matthew Knowles' business property. He said a simple garage sale his staff decided to throw turned into much more.
Somehow, that became that we're going out of business, homeless, and selling all Beyonce stuff to stay alive.
Knowles gave us a tour of the Music World Entertainment Complex, which includes the House of Darion Media Center, recording studios, and Rice Mansion, where pictures of his famous daughter line the wall. Some speculated this garage sale was a result of him being strapped for cash.
If I needed money, I wouldn't sell a $5 t-shirt. I'd sell a Grammy. or MTV award. Nah, I don't think so.
Matthew is also gearing up to produce a King Richard-style biopic based on his journey with Destiny's Child. However, if his previous omissions of Andretta, Denise and Deborah are anything to go by, it's fair to assume that this biopic will not be 100% truthful. This video was created to tribute the late Andretta Tillman. Without her, we would not have had a Destiny's Child to stand. Rest in peace, Andretta, Dwight and Shauna. As a fun fact, both Amazing Grace from The Writings on the Wall and My Time Has Come from the debut Destiny's Child album were dedicated to Andretta. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe, like and comment. See you soon with a new video.